Hi, my name is Shady Atia, professor at Liège University in Belgium, and today I'm going to talk about how to store and backup your data. Well, the audience of this presentation is mainly computer users and content developers. It can be beneficial for those two types of categories because today we have an immense amount of data that we need to store and backup. So therefore this presentation will be very beneficial for you. The content of the presentation will focus mainly on four aspects. The first aspect is the cleanup, how to clean up from the beginning your data, how to organize your data, how to structure it and store it, and finally how to retrieve it in case of loss. Now, just to give you some insights on what's happening in relation to data in our current world, there are several challenges of data storage. 25% of all PC users suffer data loss annually. Human error accounts for 29% of all data loss, such for reasons like travels, viruses, and so on. And 57% of people were more upset about losing their data than their gadgets, mainly smartphones, selfies that are related to their personalized memories and human memories. So it's very important here to look at this aspect of data loss seriously, because from a professional point of view, you need to have a solid data storage system and backup system. And from a personal point of view, you need also to store your data that is growing year after year with the digital community we are living in. Well, so first of all, let's talk about the number one message I would like to share with you. How to clean up your data. This is very important. You need to know about e-hording. E-hording is simply a phenomena where people go excessively of acquisition and reluctance to delete electronic material no longer valuable to the user. So e-hording is the malady or the sickness of the time. Many people just store the data just for storing it without any purpose, all data, and this is an attitude of not letting go, not deleting the data, not structuring it. So first of all, you need to know that this is a psychological phenomena. We do hoarding with food, we do hoarding with other phenomena, with purchasing when there is a crisis, when there is a problem. So e-hoarding is a common phenomena. I need to be aware about it, and you need to be learning how to fast. Data fasting is a very good practice. You need to read about it, learn about it, because data fasting means that not every data you will store, you will back up, and you will think and say, oh, maybe one day I will need it. No, you have to be very selective, you have to put priorities, and not everything that excites you just back up and put it on your hard disk. So e-hoarding is one of the important concepts and principles that you need to keep into account in order to be aware and conscious regarding the phenomena of storing data. Now, the question that you need to do to answer, to avoid e-hoarding, does this need to be stored? Does this information need to be stored? You need to look at this question and try to answer it in a logical way, and keep into account that massive data files, they are very costly, because data costs space on hard disks or on clouds, and this will cost you a lot. So it needs to be from the beginning rationally eliminated unnecessary data. So this is the first message I would like to share with you. Now, talking about cleaning up your data, how to clean up my files and data. You need first of all to establish a convention on your file namings. This is very important. Many people are unaware how to name their files. And a convention of file naming will make you more structured and make it more easier to store your data and structure it in a systematic way. So in general, I advise you to use capital letters to delimit words and not spaces. Just let me give you an example. I have a file, it's called adaptive facades. Technically, most people will delimit it with an underscore sign. Well, I do not recommend it, because you will have a problem here. If you are looking in a Control F or in a search situation on the computer for the file, and you type any of those words, you will miss one of them when the computer is executing the search. Therefore, it's recommended that you write them together as one word, as you can see here, adaptive facades, without space, without underscore, and you just distinguish the two words by a capital beginning letter. So adaptive with a A capital, facades with a F capital. By that you can underscore the spaces. This is harder to find. This makes it easier, to find in the computer. So removing these spaces reduces the length of the file name, but by using capital letters to differentiate between the words, the file name is still readily recognizable. So this is my first advice. Keep always your short file names as indicated here. Use underscore only for numbering, and finally you can distinguish the two words or the keywords of your file name by a capital letter. At the same time, keep your file name short but meaningful. This is very important. So let me give you an example. This is an incorrect naming. Somebody is naming the 2025 underscore master underscore thesis underscore file underscore of underscore chapter underscore 7 underscore new underscore news. That's not logic at all. You can simply summarize this, shorten it, and label it thesis chapters chapter 5 underscore and your family name, for example. In this case, you are making sure that thesis as a word is distinguished from chapter. Then you have a T capital, C capital, and then you have a 5 recognizing the number of your chapter. In case you are doing a search, Control F on your PC looking for the file, once you type thesis or chapter, this will be one of the easy retrieved files or found files that your search will get, and that's what you want to do. You don't want to search for a file and wait for a couple of hours before you get a result. You want to have it instantly. If you chop your file like here, it will be every time for the computer a new chain or a new cluster to go search in it, which will complexify the search and will make it more computationally expensive. So keep into account always to keep your short name, maximum 1 or 2 or 3 keywords, aligned together, no spaces, no underscores, distinguish them through capital letters, and maybe you can have an underscore for a final, another keyword related to your document. Now, why I'm saying that? Because it's not only difficult when you do a search, but even when you start copying your data. Let's say you are working on a computer, on an office computer or university computer or your work computer, and you need to move this data in a certain moment to store it on a PC, on a hard disk, external hard disk, or on a cloud. Once you start copying, the computer will have difficulty if the file is too long. This message is a common message that is saying the destination path too long. The file name would be too long for the destination folder. You can shorten the file name and try again. This is a common issue that happens when you store your data, and if you are from the beginning naming your file so longly with this kind of naming protocol, you will never succeed to easily move your data and copy it. And the only option will be here is to lose the file and click on skip, because you have no other option unless you go back and change the name of all the files, and most of the time you do not have time to do that. So systematically from the beginning you have to be very conscious and take care of the file naming. Now, continuing on cleaning up your data, for date file names, always state the date back to front, always back to front, so that the computer can get it chronologically and in order. So either you name it year, so 2021, 2022, or year, months, and day. So you can say 2021, August 08, 15th, 15. This is the best way to save your file. Let's get you an example. This is an incorrect example. 1st of Feb, 2020, 15th agenda. This is not a right naming system. You want to name it correctly. Here it is, 2015, 02, which is Feb, 01, which is the 1st of Feb, and then the name agenda. This is the best way to save your file if you want to do it into date, by date. Keep into account that you don't need to have here an underscore or to have a space, so that you can easily search the file very fast. So giving the dates back to front means that the chronological order of the record is maintained, and this helps when trying to retrieve the latest dated record, and again, if you are looking to copy your data easily. So the version number also is another aspect that you can add. Some people save their file by date numbers, or some people do it with version numbers that should be always appearing in the file name to identify easily the files. This is an example. When I say version number, as you can see, V04, for example, in this case, this is the wrong or incorrect naming, org underscore here underscore 2021 underscore VO2. You can simply eliminate all these underscores, keep only one for the version of your document or manuscript, and simply name it definition paper 2021 underscore version 04. And every time you go work on the file, you can change the version. This is the best way to save your file chronologically, but taking a kind of version number. So those are the two common ways of saving files. Either you name it with a keyword and a version number, let's see, look here, or you save it with a date. And in this case, I advise you to respect this convention. So let's look to another aspect before leaving this point: clean up your email box. I'm not only talking today about cleaning up your storage on your hard disk or on your PC or laptop. Keep into account that your email should be also cleaned. So this is part of the way of thinking about how can I store my data, clean it and back it up. So don't forget your emails. You need to have a strong structure for your email files and how to do that, but that could be a future video. Now moving up from cleaning up your data to organizing your data. How can I organize my data? First of all, use meaningful folder names. It's totally important to create a meaningful folder name and make sure that you keep your folder path short and never exceed more than 5 levels of subfolders. If you make this common mistake of creating subfolders exceeding 5 or 4 levels of depths, automatically once you start to copy your data from a medium to another medium, you will have this error message that is saying this file is too long for the destination folder. You can shorten the file name or try a location that has a shorter path. And here is a problem of paths. I'm not talking here about file names, I'm talking about this very long path. If you want to copy this folder called name, it's almost impossible because the computer will get so distracted here. So I see it happening with many people that they are creating a lot of subfolders, and this is not a good practice. Maximum 5 subfolders. I recommend even to keep it up to short to 3, and that's it. And you have to learn that and to be very conscious about it. And again, if you make a mistake, you will lose your data. So this is very serious. Now, regarding the labeling of your folder, organize your files with file names and labels, meaning that you have to select appropriate keywords or codes to label your files and folders. And in this sense, with a couple of keywords, only 2, maximum 3, you can instantly categorize and label files for hassle-free searches down the road. Again, I am preparing this presentation with the vision in mind that one day you are looking for a file, you are unable to find it on your hard disk, so you are using the Control F search feature on your PC or on your laptop, and while you are searching, you want the computer to find the file as soon as possible. If you are not respecting these recommendations, it will be almost impossible to find a file, or maybe it will take you almost one day to go through a lot of files. So my advice here is to take into account only 2 or 3 keywords per file name. Keep it short, and as I told you, distinguish the keywords by capital letters, but no spaces and no underscores. As a rule of thumb, keep your label to 2 words or less, and by that you can be okay. Now, when we are talking about labeling your files, what kind of letters can I use? As you know, programming was established in English-speaking countries, so it's very important to avoid non-English characters in file and folder names, because the computer will not recognize them and then you will have problems. So for example, in non-English characters, the German ones like the umlaut, the e, ö, ü, for example, or scharfes s, these kind of letters you have to avoid them totally when you name a file. Or the Greek letters, or the French letters, the accent, aigu, etc. All these kind of letters should be avoided in any naming for files or folders on your computer. Avoid signing in file folders names also with special signs like question marks, flash, forward slashes, signs, backslashes, quotation mark, asterisks, colons, or pipes. These are all forbidden. Avoid pounds, percentage, ampersand, brackets, and exclamation mark, blank spaces, plus signs, equal signs, and at signs. These are all signs should be avoided from any naming of folders or files on your PC or laptop. Now keep a good practice by keeping file names reasonably short, using lowercase and using hyphen, or underline them with underscore instead of spaces. So this is a bad file name, QNA space cardiology period PDF. How to do it correctly? You can say Q underscore or minus A minus or underscore cardiology period PDF. The same here with this file. Ointment space 2% space screaming. This should be eliminated. Just write ointment period JPEG. So this is very important to be conscious about. And unfortunately, many people who are coming from countries that are using these special letters, the German-speaking, the Slavic nations, the French-speaking, the Latin-speaking, they are unfortunately saving the files with these kind of extensions, or some other people who are explicitly English speakers, they are using these kind of signs, and I advise you strongly to avoid it. Now let's take an example. This is a file that we want to save. Right or wrong? Definitely wrong. Why is it wrong? First of all, it's very long. Okay, now what's the problem if we keep it like that? Already can you see this word Stephanie, the accent of the E? It's turned to be plus and copyright sign. Weird. Yes, because the computer is not recognizing it, and unfortunately is replacing it with another sign. So you totally lost the file. If you are at a certain moment going in your search control and writing Stephanie and searching for this word, you will not find it because it's lost. You lost it. It's done. So this is wrong, and therefore I'm saying you must make sure to avoid these special letters. Now, okay, I listen to these advices. I will write Stephanie without accent aigu. I will just write with a with a E, sorry. So is this right file? Again, it's wrong. It's very long, unbelievable. Just keep it short. You can name it 2019 underscore the name, family name, and the first name without space, without underscore, without a minus signs, period PDF. In case you are doing a search by family name or first name, you can find it. So this is the best way to name your file. In this case, you need to be always critical when you are naming your files. Keep them short, avoid spaces, avoid a lot of underscores, maybe one underscore maximum per file, and finally make sure that you are distinguishing the file with capital letters and totally avoiding any special signs or characters. Now when it comes to folder structure, also you need to be careful. Order the files in a logical and peers validated folder structure to retrieve the record. Keep into account as part of your professional life, if you are going to work in any company, most probably you will find a convention or a protocol for labeling files. So do go there with the intention to learn from these people. You cannot go from the first day work as an intern or work as a junior employee in any establishment and naively assume your own folder saving system. First of all, you must always assume that the institution already thought about that because they have a data storage and file saving protocol and convention. So first thing to do is to think, what is the valid way to save folders in the establishment where you are working? If you are creating something yourself, you're an entrepreneur or you're a student or you're working on your own or you're doing your files for your own, then make sure that you have a logically validated structure before starting saving and creating that structure. You can discuss it with others, and it's always important to discuss with peers. Now respect the structure and the subdirectories convention of your organization. The organization where you will work will most of the time supply you with a convention or with documents when you are in the orientation period, and they will tell you to shadow or to copy the same approach of saving folders. So make sure that you are respecting that. Talk to the specialist. In any establishment, there is a data manager, there's an IT specialist. Talk to these people, ask them, how do we save files here? Do you have any convention for folders saving and substructures of folders, subfolders? How do you save files? What are the protocols? And so on. So this is very important. I repeat, there are most of the time in any establishment, IT people who are already having the protocol and conventions. Always seek them to make sure that you are on the right track. So let me give you an example here. Again, we have an incorrect name and somebody is putting project 30 March 2021. I mean, this is totally meaningless. Or events 30/06 to 20, 14 webinar. This is totally lost. You need the elements to be included in a folder name should be ordered according to the way in which the record will be retrieved during the course of everyday business. For example, if the records are retrieved according to their date, the date element should appear first. If the records are retrieved according to the description, then the description element should be appear first. If you are working on project with a geographical location, then Amsterdam, Brussels, cities, the name of the city, and so on. So check first what is the protocol. Am I going to save the files, as I told earlier, based on the date, based on a short description, based on a geographical location, and so on. You need to be aware about that so that you save your folder and create a structure that is already strong and logic and easy to follow. You can have the classical structure of correspondences in, out, documentation, and so on and so on. Now, keep into account that you in your life, you will use a lot of software and you will use a lot of file formats. And this is another aspect. Many people use some software and they have limited access to the software only during the period of work. And when they leave their establishment where they are working, or the institution or the company, they do not have access to this software anymore. So the file extension, they save their work, they lose it. And when they come back 1 year later and they find the file extension, they even forget what was the software name. So they will be even unable to identify the software name that they will need to reinstall to open these files. So it's important to make sure that you use software and file types that you can access in the future. Okay? If you're working in a company and you have a source document, you're working on a report, and you are just saving the PDF, that's meaningless because the PDF you cannot edit it. You need to save the Word file. So always you can have a PDF, but you need to leave the source file. If you're working on a PowerPoint presentation and it's very important and you did it in a company for a while and you left this company, do not leave after when you leave your work back. Do not leave the PDF only. You need to leave the PowerPoint file in an open access format so others can open the file and modify the presentation. Always think about others. So please, this is very important to do. Don't use application and file extension that can be hard to access in the future. Try to avoid normally exclusive software that can be not used in the future. And if you are unfortunately using, for example, an online based software, for example, make sure to save the file in original format and write in the folder where the file is saved a short description of the software that you used, so that if somebody else in the future would like to access the data or access the file and this software is not commonly used, he should not turn rounds in order to get the name of the software and install it and so on. Just describe it so that you make it easier for others. So this is a common phenomena. We call it the death of the computer file. We name a computer file dead in many situations. When the file is very long, you lost it. When the folder or the subfolders where the file is located is very extended and very long, you lost the file. When the file is saved in a software format that cannot be opened or that is based on a software that has been expired. So these are all examples of the death of your computer file, and you do not want in the age of data to do or commit these big mistakes. Now let's talk about the third aspect of our presentation. How should I store my data? Now I cleared up how to clean my data. I am conscious. I know how to name my files, how to name my folders. I am ready. Now how can I store my data? Now save daily a file copy of your work if you are working on important documents. If you are working on a very important report and you know that the company is requiring you to submit it soon, and every day you are adding incremental part to this report, then this is a saving. This is a file that requires to be saved on a daily basis. Save the file you work on a daily basis and include a number in the file name. Always give it as a 2-digit number, for example. So, for example, you are working on the file and it's called Office Procedures _ version 1. It's better to call it Office Procedures version 01 so that you give yourself a chance to reach the number 99 while it's in the order shown in the folder. So it's very important to think how far or how many word days I will work on something. If you're working on a long document, maybe you need to have 001 or a 01001, and then you can reach even 1000 version of the file. Why this is important? Because if you spend a period of 3-4 months working on a report, and every day you save the file on the same file name, what will happen if there is any damage or corruption of your file? You lost it. But if you are every day saving a copy of your important file, first of all, you are not creating pollution, because once you are finished with your file, you can maybe leave the last 3 or 4 copies and delete all the old files, and you create in parallel also a PDF. This is one thing. The other thing is that you can go back at any moment of time and trace the changes that you did. But if you are taking the risk and naming every day the same file name, once there is a damage on your hard disk or a damage related to your PC or laptop, you lost the file. And therefore it's very recommended or strongly recommended to include a number in the file naming. To maintain the numeric number order, file names include numbers. It is important to include the 0-4 numbers, 0 to 9. This helps to retrieve the latest record number, for example 01, 02 till 99, unless it's a year or another number with more than 2 digits. You can also replace this with, I said before, the date. Well, turn on autosave feature. Very important feature. If you are working on Word, if you are working on PowerPoint, if you are working on any software, you will have most of the time an autosave feature. Turn it on and program it to make sure that you can have an autosave every 5 minutes, for example. That's a good practice. Unless you are having your server on a cloud, turn on your autosave feature. For sure on the cloud they do it automatically, but when you have your own hard disk based device, you need to do it manually. So for example in Word there is some feature related to file saving, save auto recover information. First of all, you need to set up the saving period every 5 minutes, for example. That's a good one. If you are living or working in a country with electricity power outages in general, or if you are in the summer season, or you are in any moment feeling that you will have power outages automatically, you have to shorten this period. You can even make it every 3 minutes, 2 minutes. So this is very important. And you need to be sensitive that once you are traveling and entering a power outage risky zone or vulnerable place, you must turn on your auto recovery. Also, another important thing you have to do, you have to save your auto recovery in the good location. It's very important if you are working on the server. Let's say you are working on a computer or PC or laptop and it's connected to a server. Make sure that your auto recovery file is saved on the server, so that you make sure that the server is backing up the file. Otherwise, if you are saving your auto recovery file on the hard disk and the hard disk is damaged, you just had a cup of coffee that you spilled on your laptop, you lost your data, you cannot recover it. So make sure that your recovery file has access to another place. It can be even on a cloud if you are internet connected. If not, just keep it in an easy retrievable place that you can make sure that you have access and you are backing it up frequently. So this is very important to turn on autosave. If you are a serious professional, you need to turn on your autosave features with all software you're working on. Now, another aspect or a good rule of thumb that people use, apply the 3-2-1 rule. What is the 3-2-1 rule to store data? It tells the following. If you are working on different mediums and you want to save your data from a storage point of view, you need to have 3 copies of your data. First of all, you need to keep at least 2 copies on 2 different medias. 2 copies of your data should be on a PC or an external hard disk or a cloud or a server. So 2 different copies. So I will just have my data. Let's say I have it on my laptop. I have to make another copy on one of those mediums. Okay, so this now makes me having 2 copies. 2 copies in 2 places. This is number 1. Number 2, you need to have a third copy off-site. If you are working home, you need to have it in the work. If you are working in the work, you need to have the copy home. or you can have it on the cloud. This means that you need all the time to have 3 copies of your work. The original copy you are working on with the medium you are using, PC or laptop or whatever, and then you have 2 other copies. One can be in the same space where we are working, and one must be remotely off the space you are working. Now, don't worry. I mean, if you are traveling, every time you travel, you make this copy. You can do it with a backup via internet. You can have a cloud system, but you need always to have 3 copies of your data. Now, how frequently should I back up or have a copy of my work? At least every 6 months. It depends on the importance of your work. If you are a content developer, unfortunately, I will advise you to do it every month, because you are a content developer. If your data is lost, you are lost. If you are a data scientist, the same applies. So make sure always you have 3 copies of your work. And in this sense, you can make sure that if the office burned, if your home burned, you have a copy in another place that is off-site. So it's not only safe to keep a copy on your hard disk and a copy on your PC, and the hard disk and the PC are in the same office. Imagine there is a flood, imagine there is a catastrophe, this office is not anymore accessible. Is obsolete. What happens? You lost your data. So always make the rule of 3, 2, 1. 3 copies of my work on 2 different medias, and 1 copy is off-site where I work regularly. Now I advise you to invest in an external hard drive. Buy an external hard drive. This can be one of your copies, and maybe you put a copy on an external hard drive that is in your family house or your parents' house or whatever, your second house, or in your office or somewhere differently where you work. So this could be an example. I advise you strongly to eject safely your hard drives. Very important. Otherwise you might have easily damage and storage problem and loss of data, and you will shorten the life of your hard drive. Keep into account that the hard drive will live for a period and then will die out. Many hard drives die out after 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the intensity of use. So you should not see the hard disk or external hard disk as an eternal storage place, unless you are just storing the data and you are not using it frequently. So think about that, take it into account, and always eject your USB correctly. Do not pull out your USB connection or your hard disk connection from your PC or laptop without ejecting first your USB. Very important. Now, also take into account security and safety. If you are talking about data that is needing to have a high level of security and secrecy or confidentiality, you have to think about a measure of safety. For sure, it wouldn't be logic to put it on a cloud, because then you are talking about confidentiality problem breaching. In this case, I advise you, either you get your own server and you save your data on your own server, or you need to have a safe or a safe place to store your hard disk or your data where you are saving your information. So the security and privacy is very important, and in most cases a external hard disk can require a password for access, and some new hard disks, for example, require a fingerprint to access the device. So all these technologies are very important to make sure that safety or safeguarding privacy is very important, because if you have a problem of breach, safety breach, it will be very serious. Now you can invest in a backup server. So a couple of €100 or dollars, it's worth it. The data worth the money, it's your investment. If you have data sets, if you have content, videos, whatever, this is your capital, so it needs to be saved. I strongly advise to avoid, if you are working in your office or in an establishment, to use the USB key. In some establishment, using a USB already can jeopardize your chances of you breach security. You cannot use a USB. You cannot go to a company or a workplace and come with your USB and start using it. Some companies do not have USBs on their PCs because it's a matter of security confidentiality. So the best way is to have a server, a common server in the establishment to your work, and people should not use these kind of devices. Automate the backing up system. You can also do the same backup system for your emails. I can tell you a lot of stories of people I worked on, once they left the work, they were almost crying because they lost all their files on their email and they never backed up their email. In Microsoft Outlook, there is a feature to export your emails. So if you are a student, master student, PhD student, if you're a junior trainee, if you are employee, a young senior, junior employee, and you want to save your mail that you were using within certain during this period of work, always back up your file through Outlook and have a copy of your email so that you can go back, because most of the time emails will have a personal side and they will have a work-related side, and maybe you want to have established a connection and a network that you established when you were working. So you can automate backing up, and in this sense you can automate backing up your emails, and you can automate backing up your files on the server. So there is a lot of software that exists that help you to do that, open access or paid, and in this sense you fully control your data storage system. And in general, like I told you, for your mailbox you have a feature. This is in Outlook. You can export your files or your email box. So in this sense you are having a backup system for data on the server, and you have a backup system for your email address on your own hard disk, for example. Importantly to think about is archiving. You need to archive your data. Archiving is not data storing. Data storing is that you store the data while you are working. But archiving is another concept. Archiving, when you are done with a project, with a period of your life, and you do not need to access this data on a frequent daily basis. You need to archive it, meaning that you cut it out of your hard disk from your laptop or your PC, and you store it somewhere. You can access it only when you need it. Most people will need an archive for their images and pictures. If you started young, taking pictures and making documentation of your personal or professional life experiences, you will end up having large number of gigabytes. And it's not logic to take every day all your history of pictures and images every day with you on your movable external hard disk or on your laptop and go to work with that. So at a certain moment you need to cut historically some moment of your life and archive the data, and you do not use it and take it every day with you in your cloud and backup system. So archive the unused folders and projects to back it up only and back up only the essential data, and increase the change of retrieval case of data loss. So simply you have the data, you decide to have part of your data that you are using. This can be backed up data, and part of your data will be archived. This is accumulated data that I'm not going to use. I only retrieve it as required. Once I need this data, I will go get the hard disk or get the most probably it will be on a hard disk or on a desk. I will go get it, access it, and I can work on it. If you need this data and you are using it frequently, then you are backing it up. So actually you need to have always two systems: a backup system for your frequently used data, and you need to have an archiving system for your less frequently used data. Here you save a part of your data, you keep it stored, and you access it only when you need it. And here you have a replicate of your data that you always use frequently. Now, what is the best way to archive data? Let's agree that storing data can be done on a cloud, or can be done on a server, or can be done on an external hard disk. But archiving data, I do not recommend to do it on a cloud, because the initial investment will be low, yes, but when you look at the long term, it will be very expensive, because it is not good to archive data on a cloud system if you have security problem. For sure you will have a slow access time, sensitivity will be low with low failure rate, but the cost will be prohibitive, because most of the time if you are archiving your data on a cloud, you will pay per gigabytes monthly, and this will be a fortune accumulated wise if you leave it for a long time. So I do not recommend to archive data on a cloud. on a data center, for example, but it's strongly recommended to archive your data on one of these three mediums, either on a hard disk, external hard disk, it can be connected, or hard disk in a PC, or you save it on a linear tape open. And in this sense, you need to have a LTO system of archiving, and you need to invest in it. And don't underestimate it. It's worth it, the investment, because these disks will have a very moderate maintenance cost. The initial investment cost is high, but it's good for long-term archiving of large amounts of data. So this is the best way to save your data, the LTO tapes. For sure, the sensitivity is low. And otherwise, if you do not have a lot of data, you can use external hard disk. So these are the options to archiving strategy. Again, I advise to go for LTO tapes if you have large amount, if you are a company, if you are a startup, if you have a certain content development on a professional level. If you're an individual and just want to save your data, then I advise you to invest in hard disk and keep piling them in safe places, and again, respect the rule of 3-2-1. Now I'm moving to the last part of the presentation, retrieving data. The data is lost, and I am in a situation that I need to retrieve the data. The accident happened, so what can I do? Now, 150,000 hard disks break weekly worldwide. People are unable to restore the data from a physically damaged hard drive, so they can have a problem in this case. And the only way to recover data from a hard drive that is damaged is to send it to a clean lab. And a clean lab will charge you not less than €1,000, $1,000 in this range, plus or minus, depending on the data, just to open the hard disk and start to move the reader unit and start to check what can they retrieve and not. And no company will give you a promise 100% of recovery or retrieval of your data. So this is one of the options that you can have. And for sure, this is not for beginners. It's not you who will do that. You will need to send it to a professional, and it will be very costly. Other option of data retrieval is through software. So if your drive, for example, your hard disk, your camera, your USB stick stops working and you lost the data on it, or you delete it by mistake, in this case, your data might return. You will need to return it, but keep into account, don't install the recovery software on the drive where you have lost the files, because you need to keep, once you have data that is deleted on a device, any of these devices, don't do anything. Don't copy anything, don't do anything. Keep this device and install a data recovery software on another device, and from the other device, ask the computer or the PC or the laptop to recover the data on the unit and make a connection. So you have a camera, you lost the data on the camera, you don't install the software of recovery on the camera, you will install it on your PC, and then you tell the PC to recover. You lost the data from your laptop, okay, then you will install the software on a computer, fixed desktop, you connect your desktop to your hard disk of your laptop, and you start to recover the data. So just to let you know, to give you an idea, this is the way how files or data is saved in a computer. And once you have a loss, if you lose a part of your data, let's say those 4 places, you here had that there was data and you by mistake something happened, you lost it. Now you are asking the recovery software to recover it, right? Now if you already copied after the data loss information on the device, this space that was potentially going to be the source of recovery is now overridden with new information. So no way you can recover it. So again, do never copy anything on a device that needs to be recovered the data from. Stop all file writing and opening operations. Stop everything, don't update, don't install anything. You use the device, you freeze it, and you go using a recovery software to recover the data. Don't reboot the damaged storage. That's another rule. If you reboot, you might ever lose the data. Have a plenty of free disk space at all time, because the whole idea with data recovery that the computer will try to recover the data because when you delete it, actually it is not deleted. It's partially saved in another empty space on your hard disk. So what the computer software will try to do is to recover this backed up files and rewrite them in the original location so that you can find them as they were originally. But if the hard disk was already full, most probably you lost the data. So these are some advices to keep into account. Data retrieval is always risky, and it depends on many factors. Long file names and directory paths will be lost. So as I told you from the beginning, don't make long folder names, substructures, and don't make long file names. Recent files will be lost, most probably. The last 3 days you will lose them. Free recovery software is limited most of the time to 1 giga. If you want to recover larger volumes of data, you'll need to pay, and it will be expensive. I recommend in general to use a software called Stellar or Wondershare to work with in case of recovery. Now I'm closing my presentation of today with some takeaway message, and I hope you can all benefit from the presentation, apply it in your daily life, and make sure that you are professionally prepared and equipped to be effective and efficient with data management and data storage in your daily life. First of all, avoid long names. We talked about that enough. Source of paths, also keep your paths of files short. I said maximum 3 subfolders, and then no problem to have a lot of files. But then when you copy, you do not have a problem. If you need a recovery, no problem. Plan ahead your data storage. You need to have a plan. You need to have a solid plan, serious plan. When somebody asks you, what is your data storage plan, you need to have an answer. How you store your data. First of all, how you save your data, and what is the convention and labeling system for your data. How do you store your data and back it up, whether it's your email, whether it's your hard disk. And finally, how you are archiving your data, and what is your system of archiving. And as you know, the older you grow in experience and in age, you will have a lot of data that needs to be archived. This is also something you need to plan. I advise you to have an automatic weekly backup for the data that you work on a frequently basis. Talk to the specialist in your establishment. Many establishments, they have sufficient infrastructure, so you must make sure that you are following or complying with what recommendations or learning from them. And finally, apply the 3-2 rules for your own personal data so that you are always safe in case of risk. And I would like to close with a very common statistically mistake that happens. When do we lose data? Most of the time when we are traveling. Prevent the data loss on your devices. Now when you are traveling, you will have your smartphone, you will have your camera, you will have your external hard disk, you will have a USB key, and most probably you have your laptop. These are all sources of risks. You are traveling, you are focused, distracted, you are on vacation, on holiday, on a business trip, whatever. While traveling, use the cloud and avoid saving on the external device. That's my advice. Do not use your external device and use unit, because there is 2 risks for these units. First of all, there is a risk that they get stolen or lost. Second risk, they got damaged. If you are using those devices frequently during the travel, while you are outside your comfort zone and you are stressed, you can make a mistake. And traveling is related also with leisure and with relaxation. So the statistical chance of making a mistake is higher. So always I advise to copy and save everything on a cloud. And when you are back, you can retrieve or copy this data back on your fixed PC or on your laptop. Delete the data from your device only after returning and backing up the data. Many people will travel, they have copies of the pictures on their camera, and they cut the file. When they are copying the folder on their laptop, they are not doing a copy, they are doing control cut. So what did you do now? You took all the data from your camera, you put it on your laptop, and then your laptop, coffee spilled on it, you lost the data. Do not do that, please. Always copy your data and not cut it out from the source, or put it on the cloud. And when you are back and you have a backup, once you did your backup, then delete the data from the source. So this is also precious advice from experience. I hope the presentation was useful for you. It's part of the series of presentation on professional working practices. I hope it was beneficial, and thank you for your attention. Don't hesitate to like or subscribe to the channel and share the video with others. Thank you for your attention and have a good day.